Today's first story was sent in by Jason from Ohio. After hearing Jason's chilling experience, you might think twice before taking an attractive, high-paying job. Let's hear the experience of that night directly in Jason's own words.
We see you in the shadow.
My name is Jason. This happened in October 2021. Back then, I had just lost my job and my back was against the wall due to debt. Right at that time, a strange ad on Craigslist caught my eye. It read acre needed for a massive old house. Duration 1 month. Salary $3,000 per week. Room and board all free. $3,000 a week. Almost triple the salary of my previous job. At first, I thought it was a scam, but the surprising thing was that after I called, they selected me without any interview. However, there was one condition: I had to join tonight. Blackwood Estate was located deep inside the forest, about 20 miles from the city. When I arrived there, evening was fading into darkness. The house was built in the Victorian era. The massive gray stone walls seemed to be silently observing me from within the darkness. The estate manager, Mr. Green, came to receive me. The man was very restless, as if he would only be safe if he could escape from that place. He handed me a bunch of keys and very quickly told me some rules. He said, "Do not open the main gate after midnight under any circumstances. And if you hear any sounds, do not mess with them. It's an old house. Wood moves or pipes make noise, just ignore it." Without giving me a chance to ask any questions, he got into his car and quickly drove away. The first night was unusually quiet, so silent that even the sound of my own breath was ringing in my ears. I was sitting on the sofa in the living room watching TV. It was about 11 at night. Suddenly, it felt like someone ran down the upstairs corridor. Thump, thump, thump. Very fast. I turned down the TV volume. The whole house became still again. I convinced myself that the old wooden floor was bound to make sounds from shrinking. Calming myself down, I focused on the TV again. But on the second night, things were no longer limited to just sounds. I was making coffee in the kitchen. I left the mug on the counter and went to the living room to put my phone on charge. It was a matter of 15 to 20 seconds at most. When I returned to the kitchen, I froze. The mug wasn't on the counter. I was certain exactly where I had placed it. I looked around. I saw the mug placed exactly in the center of the kitchen island, but upside down. Not a single drop of coffee had spilled on the floor. That meant in those few seconds someone had silently moved it. I shouted out, "Hello, is anyone there?" No answer. Except for the continuous mechanical hum of the refrigerator, the whole house was as silent as a graveyard. I returned to my room without drinking the coffee. I started to feel like someone or something was counting my every step from the 1,000 corners of the darkness. On the third night, the limit of my patience was exceeded. From the evening, a pungent smell was floating in the air of the house. The acrid smell of old sweat and rotten tobacco. The smell intensified as I went near the basement door. The door was locked from the outside with a rusted padlock. I put my ear to the door. A very low-pitched sound of someone humming was coming from the other side. A melody like a child's voice. I pushed the door and asked, "Who's there?" The melody stopped instantly. Then a massive blow hit the lock from the other side of the door. Boom! As if someone slammed their body against the door from the inside. I jumped back in fear. Without standing there for another second, I went straight to my room. I locked the door and sat on the bed with a baseball bat in my hand. It was 3 a.m. Suddenly I heard the sound of a water faucet being turned on in the bathroom. Gush, gush, gush. I was certain the faucet was closed. Holding the bat up, I opened the bathroom door. No one was inside. The faucet was wide open. Water was overflowing. The mirror was blurred with steam from the hot water. And on that steam, someone had written something in large letters using a finger. Water was still dripping from the writing. There was only one word: Smilly. In the reflection of the mirror, I saw the cover of the ventilation shaft right behind my shoulder was slightly ajar. That writing on the mirror wasn't just for me. Rather, it was for the one watching me from the other side of the lens. I didn't delay for another moment and started packing my bag. Before escaping while going to take my passport from the drawer, my hand touched an old blue notebook. was hidden at the very back of the drawer. Written on top, David, my predecessor caretaker. Out of curiosity, I opened the notebook. On the last pages, the handwriting was completely illegible, as if written in extreme terror. In one place, it was written, date September 15th. I hear coughing sounds from inside the walls. They live inside the hollow walls of this house. Mr. Green knows everything. If anyone finds this, run. They are coming. The notebook slipped from my hand. These are not ghosts. A group of people has been hiding here for years, using secret passages. They are monitoring my every second. Suddenly, a harsh, mechanical sound rang through the whole house. The intercom. Jason, you broke the rules. You were trying to escape after midnight. The whole house roared like a living monster. I saw blue lights glowing from the tiny pinhole camera lenses in the corners of the walls. I realized that Blackwood Estate is no ordinary house. It's a studio. I ran toward the main door. I grabbed the door handle and twisted it, but it didn't move. Someone had jammed the mechanism from the outside. Going to the window and pulling the curtain aside, I saw 3 men standing in the rain on the lawn. They were wearing raincoats and white masks with smiling faces. They weren't moving, just staring fixedly at me. Suddenly, the basement door behind me opened with a creak. The door that was locked was now gaping open. Someone was coming up the dark stairs. The sound of heavy boots on the wooden stairs. Thump, thump, thump. I screamed and ran toward the kitchen. I saw a meat cleaver stuck into the table. Beside it was a small note, written in red ink. The game begins. Hide. I jumped onto the pantry room window. I pushed and broke the rusted frame with all my strength. Somehow, I squeezed my body out to the narrow gap in the window. I crashed onto the wet grass below. The forest was heavy with the sound of rain. I started running blindly through the pine forest. From the second-floor balcony, a bright searchlight was scanning across the forest. A scream drifted down from above. He's been spotted in Zone 2. Go that way. I felt like I had entered a video game where I was the prey. After running for a while, I froze. My foot tripped on something. In the flash of lightning, I saw human bones peeking out from under the ground. David and those like him who came here with his lucrative job offer, their final destination was this forest. Flashlight beams were dancing behind me. I could hear whistling. Suddenly, there was a gunshot. The bullet tore through the bark of a tree and whizzed past my ear. Without looking back again, I made a death-defying run toward the highway. When I saw the truck's headlights standing in the middle of the road, I had no strength left in my body. Seeing me in a bloody state, the elderly driver didn't delay for a moment and pulled me into the truck. Looking through the side mirror, I saw 3 white masked men standing still near the edge of the woods. They didn't step onto the road. Their game remained unfinished today. When the police came to investigate, they found the house completely empty. No one named Mr. Green had ever been the manager of that estate. It was a fake identity. The police said the house had been abandoned for many years, and the encrypted data found from the server room said that this was a dark web live stream setup. In the name of a haunting experience, they showed a real-life human hunting game live for wealthy viewers. 3 years have passed. I work in the daylight now, but even today, occasionally late at night my phone rings. Unknown number. I don't pick up, because I know that mechanical voice will drift from the other side. The game isn't over yet, Jason. We're watching you. The need for money often blinds us, and some people from the darkness take advantage of that opportunity. In the dark world of the internet, your fear is just a commodity. This incident of Jason's teaches us, if an offer seems unbelievably good, it probably isn't true. Be careful, because you never know if someone is aiming a lens at you and smiling from the other side of the window. If you liked today's story, give it a like and stay with us. The second story takes place in a location where people sleep for the last time, the Morgue. This story was sent in by Mark from Washington. Mark had been a believer in science and logic all his life, but on a stormy night in 2019, what happened to him in the basement of a Seattle hospital crushed all of his beliefs. Mark requested that there be no exaggerated drama in his words, because what he saw was something more than just fear. It was an unbearable discomfort. Let's hear it directly in Mark's own words. My name is Mark, This happened in November of 2019. I was living in Seattle then. Let me start by saying I didn't have the slightest bit of belief in ghosts or the paranormal. To me, there is a scientific explanation behind everything. After death, the human body is just a useless machine. At least, that's what I believed until that night. At the time, I really needed money due to the pressure of student loans. So, when I got the offer for a night shift security guard position at the Morgue of St. Mary's General Hospital, I didn't say no. The job was easy. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., just sitting in the basement and doing rounds once an hour. The first few nights were quite boring. The morgue environment is a bit different. Bright white lights, tiles, and the constant mechanical hum of the AC. Usually, a morgue has a strong smell of fennel or medicine, but in this basement, a strange, musty smell could be found from time to time. It was an old building, so I thought it was probably a plumbing issue. I didn't give it much importance. The trouble started during the second week of my duty. That day, there was a terrible storm in Seattle. It was raining heavily when I started my shift. There is no mobile network in the basement, and due to the storm, the hospital's Wi-Fi was also down that day. I was spending idle time sitting at the reception. The clock was at 2010 a.m. then. Suddenly, all the lights went out. Pitch black for a few seconds. Right after that, the generator started with a loud noise, and the emergency lights flickered on. But that night was very dim. In that dim twilight, I heard the first sound. The sound came from about 30 feet away from my desk, where the body's storage freezers are. Click, tack. The sound was familiar to me. It was the sound of the heavy steel door latch of a cooler unit opening. I put down the magazine and looked. The corridor was empty. I told myself, Mark, there's nothing to be afraid of. Maybe the magnetic lock opened because of a voltage fluctuation. But a sense of unease began to gnaw at me, because the handle of the door to unit number 3 moved slightly right before my eyes. I picked up the flashlight and stood up. I encouraged myself. It's physics, air pressure, or some mechanical glitch. Slowly, I stepped toward unit number 3. The sound of my boots echoed in the empty corridor. I stood in front of the door. The red light of unit number 3 was blinking. I gripped the handle and pushed. No, the door was closed. Just as I was about to turn around with a sigh of relief, that smell hit my nose. It wasn't the familiar smell of the hospital. It was the smell of dirty, stagnant water, exactly like the foul stench that comes out when a manhole cover is opened. Along with it was a wet, damp feeling. I thought maybe a drain had leaked somewhere because of the storm. I started walking back to my desk. I had taken exactly 3 steps. A heavy metallic sound came from behind me. Back. I froze. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Very slowly, I turned my neck. The heavy steel door of unit number 3 was now wide open. The stainless steel tray inside had slid out about a foot, as if it had been thrust out by some push from within. But what made my blood run cold was the body bag on top of the tray. The black vinyl bag was supposed to be flat, but it was abnormally bloated, as if the corpse inside was lying with its knees bent. I couldn't move. Right before my eyes, the bag moved again. Very slowly, but a heavy movement, as if the corpse inside was trying to turn over. In the silent morgue, that rustling sound of plastic sounded like a thunderclap. My scientific mind was still looking for logic. Gas has built up as the body decomposes. Muscle spasms are happening. Dead bodies move. It's normal, but what happened after that has no explanation written in books. Maybe the zipper of the body bag wasn't fastened properly. With the jerking of the corpse, the zipper slid open a bit with a zip sound. A hand came out through the gap in the bag. The hand hung outside the tray. Pale, grey skin. The fingers were strangely bent, and murky water was dripping from that hand onto the floor. Drop by drop, drip, drip. A corpse kept in a morgue is supposed to be dry, but this corpse was soaking wet, and that rotten sewer smell had now become unbearably intense. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out of my throat. I saw the fingers of the hanging hand reaching toward the floor, as if it was searching for something. Suddenly, the tray came out a bit further. Clack. Under the weight of the corpse, the tray lost its balance. The whole body didn't fall to the floor with a thud, but rather hung there strangely. At that moment it felt like that thing, that corpse, was trying to get up. It wanted to crawl down. I lost my courage. I turned around and ran. At the end of the corridor was the autopsy room. Its door was sturdy. I ran inside and slammed the door shut. I locked it and stood with my back against the door. My chest was heaving like a bellows. I listened intently. At first, everything was silent. Only the thumping sound at my heart. Then, the sound came. Not the sound of a human walking. Slap, squelch, slap. The sound of wet, bare feet hitting the tiles, as if someone was walking with water-soaked feet. The sound was very slow, but it was definitely approaching my door, and with every step there was a sound of wet breathing, as if someone was trying to breathe with a mouthful of phlegm or water inside their throat. Gurgle, gurgle. The sound came to a stop right on the other side of my door. That gurgling sound was now right behind the door. I saw the handle of the autopsy room door go down very slowly, but firmly. Click. The door was locked, but the thing on the other side didn't want to accept that. There was a heavy thud against the door, as if a heavy wet sack had been thrown against it. Then a sticky, dragging sound, as if someone was rubbing their body against the door. I recoiled in fear. I went to a corner of the autopsy room and curled up under the steel autopsy table. My hands were shaking. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and tried to dial 911, but the screen said, "No service." There's no signal underground. The sounds of banging on the door outside kept increasing. Thud, thud. With every strike, a black liquid began to slowly seep into the room through the gap under the door. At first, I thought it was blood, but no. In the flashlight's beam, I saw it was dark, murky water, mixed with mud and moss. And that rotten sewer smell was now so intense that I felt like I was about to vomit. Suddenly, the autopsy room lights went out. The generator had probably failed. I was plunged into total darkness. Only the sound of that water coming from under the door and that wet, breathing sound from outside. Shh. I don't know how long I held my breath in that darkness. Time seemed to have stood still. Suddenly, I felt the room temperature dropping unnaturally. It was different from the AC's cold from before. It was a bone-chilling sensation that made the marrow of my bones shiver. I felt like I wasn't alone in this room anymore. The sound on the other side of the door had stopped, but my sixth sense was telling me the danger wasn't outside the door anymore. The danger had gotten inside. Right next to my table, there was a splashing sound on the floor. Someone was walking toward me with wet feet, but I hadn't heard any sound of the door opening. Then how? I wanted to scream, but my voice got stuck. I closed my eyes in fear. Just then, something touched my right ankle. Cold, ice cold and wet. It felt like a firm, mud-covered hand had gripped my leg. The fingers were digging into my skin through my pants. There was no warmth in that touch, only the chill of death. My brain couldn't take the pressure anymore. Everything blurred before my eyes due to the intensity of the fear. A sound like a water bubble rising whispered near my ear. Then everything went black. I lost consciousness. When I regained consciousness, there was a bright light on my eyes. Mark, Mark, can you hear me? I sat up with a jolt. Standing in front of me was the day shift supervisor, Mr. Henderson. There was a look of panic on his face. I was still under the table. It was morning. The lights were on. Everything was normal. I looked around frantically. Where are they? Where is that body? Mr. Henderson held me up. Calm down, Mark. There's no one here. We found you unconscious. You probably had a gas leak or a panic attack. Panic attack? I looked at my own leg, near the ankle of my khaki pants where I had felt that cold touch. There was a dark mud stain, a clear fingerprint of a hand. I didn't show it to Henderson, but I know it wasn't an illusion. Coming out into the corridor, I froze. The door to unit number 3 was now closed. The floor was clean. There was no water anywhere. Sir, I asked in a trembling voice whose body was in unit number 3 last night. Henderson hesitated for a moment. Then he sighed and said, "That was a John Doe sent by the police, an unidentified body. The man died after falling into a main city drain manhole during the storm. The body had been submerged in rotten drain water for 2 days. The police dropped it off last night. Drain water. My stomach churned again. That rotten sewer smell drifted to my nose once more. Anderson added, "But a strange thing happened, Mark. When I arrived this morning, I saw the latch of unit number 3 was open, and the tray had come out of it. The body had slipped and was hanging halfway out. Maybe it happened due to vibrations. He was giving me logic, all right, but the tremble in his voice told me he also couldn't believe that a corpse could slip from the tray and hang like that all by itself. I didn't stay there for a single moment longer. I handed in my ID card and keys and walked straight out. I didn't even take that month's salary. It's been 3 years now. I work in a superstore now in the daylight. I never do night shifts anymore. On rainy nights, I don't even leave the house. Doctors say it's PTSD. They say I had a hallucination, but I know it wasn't a hallucination. Because even today, when I look at those pants, which I never washed and have kept hidden deep in the closet, that mud stain is still there, a handprint. The dead don't move. That's what science says. But my experience says that on some nights, especially when there's a storm outside, they don't just move, they rise. After this experience of Mark's, the boundary between scientific reasoning and the supernatural really becomes blurred. It could be that Mark had a hallucination due to a mechanical failure in the morgue and the effects of toxic drain gas. But that mud stain? Or the handprint on the pants? Science might not be able to provide answers to these. Mark's decision was probably the right one. It's better not to know what is behind some doors. If today's story has sent even a small shiver of fear down your spine, then our purpose is fulfilled. If such an unexplainable incident has happened to you as well, write to us, stay well, and stay safe. Because when darkness falls, you are never completely alone. After hearing this third incident, you might want to check your door one more time. We think that as long as we lock the door, we are safe. But what if the danger isn't outside the door, but is already lurking inside? That is exactly what happened to Mark. Let's begin. My name is Mark. This incident happened in 2019. Back then, I was living in Seattle. My Uncle Jerry had built a massive vacation house near the Olympic Forest in Washington State. Since my uncle and aunt were going on a tour of Europe, they gave me the responsibility of watching the house. A secluded forest, a modern glass house. I loved the opportunity to stay away from the hustle and bustle of the city. So, I agreed. The house was strange. It had floor-to-ceiling glass walls everywhere. During the day, the forest looked beautiful, but at night, in the pitch-black darkness of the night, I couldn't see anything from inside the house except my own reflection. But if someone were outside, they could see me clearly. This is called the Fishbowl Effect. It felt like I was on a stage, and the darkness outside was my audience. From the afternoon of the third day, the weather started to take a turn for the worse. Heavy storms and rain. It was 10 o'clock at night. I was reading a book in the living room. Suddenly, it felt like I heard the sound of heavy boots walking on the backyard deck. Thud, thud. I looked toward the glass, but nothing could be seen except my own shadow. I thought it might be some wild animal. But after a while, the sound happened again. This time, it wasn't on the deck. It felt like someone was walking over the gravel toward the main door. Right after that, someone very gently turned the door handle. Click. The sound was faint, but in that silent house, it sounded like a bomb. I was certain the door was locked. Still, I went to check. Looking through the peephole, I saw no one outside, only the storm. I calmed myself down, thinking it was probably the sound of the wind. I went to the kitchen to drink some water. As I went to set the glass down, my eyes got stuck on the floor. Right in front of the back door, there was a drop of mud on the floor. I am certain that this wasn't there when I cleaned the house in the afternoon, and I hadn't even opened that door in the last 2 days. I went closer and saw the lock was open. My blood ran cold. I had checked it. Or did I remember it wrong? I consoled myself, thinking maybe my uncle had left it open. I quickly locked the door and put on the security bar, but from that night on, it started to feel like I wasn't alone in the house. The next morning, while drinking coffee, I looked out the window, near the boundary, under an oak tree. The dirt was very disturbed. A cigarette butt was lying there. Neither my uncle nor I smoke. I went outside and saw clear boot prints on the mud. The prints didn't lead back toward the forest. They came toward the house by the side of the garage and disappeared. That means, last night, Someone was standing behind the cover of that tree watching me for hours. While I thought I was safe, someone was targeting me. Terrified, I ran into the house. When I went to call the police, I saw no service. I checked the landline. There was no dial tone. Did the line snap in the storm, or did someone cut it? Right then a sound came from upstairs, the sound of something heavy falling. Thud. The sound came from the master bedroom, which was supposed to have been locked for the past 3 days. I had only a kitchen knife in my hand. I tiptoed up the stairs. The master bedroom door was slightly ajar. With a push, the door opened. The large window on the opposite side of the room was open. Rain was spraying in, and there were mud stains on the floor carpet. Not just one pair, but many. Someone had walked in this room. On the table next to the bed was an empty beer can. The brand was local, which I hadn't bought. That means, while I was downstairs, someone else was living on the second floor of this very house, right above my head. I didn't stay for another second. I ran downstairs and went to the garage. I got into the car and started it, but the car wouldn't move. I got out and saw that all 4 tires had been slashed into ribbons with something sharp. There was a hissing sound of air escaping. He doesn't want me to go. He wants to trap me. I ran back into the house and locked the door. I dragged the sofa in front of the door. I sat in the living room holding 2 knives. Suddenly, with a zap, all the lights in the house went out. Power cut. Everything was pitch black. In a flash of lightning, I suddenly saw on the other side of the living room's glass wall, on the deck, a figure, wearing a raincoat, hood up. He was standing still, watching me. The lightning faded. Darkness again. In the next flash, he was gone. But he hadn't left. Right behind me, a sound came from the basement door. Click, click. Someone was turning the handle. Then a raspy voice drifted from the other side of the door. Mark, open the door, I'm so cold. My name, he knows my name. My throat went dry with fear. A violent bang on the door. Bam. The wooden door started to break. He was desperate to get inside. The lock broke, and the door swung open. I saw him in the flash of lightning, over 6 feet tall, a dirty raincoat holding a large iron wrench. He smiled, revealing yellow teeth. Got you, Mark. As he stepped forward, I threw the heavy ashtray in my hand. It hit him on the forehead. As he stumbled, I ran toward the main door. He chased after me. I was delayed trying to open the door. He grabbed my jacket. In the struggle, we both fell down. I was suffocating from the foul smell coming off his body. He squeezed my throat. I plunged the knife in my hand into his hand. He screamed and let go of me. I somehow managed to get out and ran toward the forest, barefoot in the rain. I don't know how long I ran. Getting onto the road, I waved my hand in front of a truck. The driver rescued me and took me to the sheriff's office. When the police went to the house, the man had fled. But the police found a small secret chamber or crawl space under the basement. There was a mattress, some food, and a notebook. The man had been there for the last 2 weeks, even when my uncle was at the house. In the notebook, he had written down my routine when I sleep, what I do. He even wrote, Mark wore a blue shirt today. And he learned my name by listening to my phone calls. The police could never catch him. After that incident, I never went to a secluded place again. Even now, before going to sleep at night, I check under the bed, because that raspy voice still rings in my ears. Open the door, Mark. Oh, just imagine, if someone lived with you silently inside your own house, right behind the walls. Mark's 6th sense and presence of mind are what saved him. Do you have any such strange experiences? If you do, write to us. Stay safe, and yes, did you lock the door properly? Good night.